Well, good morning, everyone. I'll call the April 21st, 2021 Chair's Breakfast meeting to order. And we may have a light attendance this week because some people are taking this week as vacation week. I want to first thank the Public Ceremonies and Celebrations Committee for all their programming for the April 19th Patriots Day celebration. I hope some of you had an opportunity to see the virtual program, and there was also some live programming that contributed obviously to that virtual program. So thank you very much to them. I just want to remind everybody that if you are currently seated on a committee, your tenure and your term is due to expire this year, your tenure continues through the end of town meeting. So I know there continues to be some questions about that, but in that same vein, I just want to remind everybody that if you do know of people whose terms are coming to an end, that it's important to identify successors, and it is not too early between now and June to get that on the select board agenda for reappointment, because some of the committee work begins immediately after the June annual town meeting. And so we need to make sure we have committees seated. And I may have to repeat that later for others who come in late. I also want to mention and thank all of the committees who have dealt with some very robust community conversations throughout the year, but particularly in this last month, we seem to have had a number of them. And I want to acknowledge the professionalism with which committees have dealt with that and continue to deal with that. So thank you for that. And also one last reminder that the first two public hearing meetings are going to occur this next week already. For some, it seems like it's been a while coming, but for others, it's come too quickly. So that's the select board hearing is on the 27th of April, and the 29th of April is the FinCom public hearing, which will deal with the town budgets. So with that, I think we'll open it up to committee reports. And Mary, before you lose power, there you go.
Thank you, Linda. I'm Mary Hartman. I'm the chair of the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee right now is looking forward to the hearings that are in the upcoming weeks. We're hoping that there's a good turnout and that there's a robust discussion. At those hearings, since the town meeting itself will be outside, it'll be hard to have a more robust discussion there. The Finance Committee will vote for their recommendations on specific warrant articles after those hearings. We'll vote whether we recommend affirmative action or no action on specific articles that have a financial impact to the town. Other than that, the other thing that is taking a lot of energy from the Finance Committee right now is the middle school building project. We're looking at that very closely. Right now, it's forecasted to have about $1,000 per year impact on the average property tax bill, and this will go on for 20 to 25 years. So we're looking at that closely. We're hoping to influence that. The cost continues to rise. So we're having a meeting this week again to discuss that. Other than that, it's business as usual. Thank you.
Hardly business as usual.
Yeah, hardly business as usual.
Right? Mary or Linda, can I ask just a brief question related to the last subject? And that is, do we have a graph, a line graph showing the debt load of the town going forward over the next 20 to 30 years, which would show the amount of debt that is carried by the taxpayers over that period of time and the amount of principal interest payable each year in a graphical format, so that's easy to analyze what we are really talking about when we add about $6.5 million a year in debt service to that debt load.
Linda, do you want me to take that, or?
Oh, well,
Is that a rhetorical question?
I think we can briefly respond to that. I think that that's part of the discussion that will happen at FinCom this Thursday evening.
Yes, yes. Henry, we have information about our current debt load in the FinCom report. I don't know if it's graphical. I think it's a tabular.
It is tabular, and I was trying to convert it into a graph but I think the complexity doesn't really allow doing that.
Probably Carrie might be the person to talk to for that. And then also Carrie has published something that shows the potential debt load from the middle school. And I believe that's posted on the middle school building committee's website.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mary. Yanni?
Hi, good morning. How are you? I am, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I am Yannis Tsitsas with CHDC, Concord Housing Development Corporation, and I'm here to report today that the residential portion, Grantham, continues its activities towards closing, planned for early in 2022. And the CHDC participated in the recent housing roundtable and heard an interesting presentation by the League of Women Voters on potential parcels for affordable housing in Concord. And we'll be reviewing the list in more details for feasibility. Also, CHDC, we continue to support the Junction Village open space efforts. In fact, the task force is meeting this Thursday, and we'll hear from local experts on the historic value of the parcel for consideration. And basically the group will also propose passive recreational uses and amenities for the site, which might include historical placards detailing its rich history, public art, construction of a siting area, a pollinator meadow, and a canoe launch or landing. And their goal for the process is to engage as many groups and constituencies as possible in the planning. And their hope is reaching out to any group that will contribute to and help guide the process as they engage in the landscape architectural firm and begin to sketch the possibilities for how the open space portion will be used. So we support that as CHDC, and I'll have more to that. We'll have more to that on the next breakfast meeting.
So thank you, Yanni. Yeah, so those of you who are interested in the history of the parcel for Junction Village, be sure to attend the Thursday meeting. I believe it starts at 5 o'clock. And there are going to be David Wood and other experts will be there talking about the use of being a muster field back in the 1800s.
Yes. It will be 5 o'clock Thursday, and it will be David Wood, Ann Woss, and Rick Fries, so among others.
Thank you. Okay, Tom.
Tom Matthews here. I'm the chair of the Board of Assessors. Just want to report that we have finished the abatement season. We had about 60 applications, which is pretty much in line with what we've had the last few years. But of the 60, about 15 of them were commercial. And this past year, we weren't able to abate any of the commercial properties because the fiscal year 21 looks at 19 activity. So Lane does have a little bit of concern about commercial properties as we head into next year's fiscal budget, because we do feel there'll be a lot of commercial applications, and it will then be applicable to apply abatements because we'll be looking at the 2020 impact from the COVID-19. So that's one thing I wanted to share with you. I also want to share with you that we are actively looking for members to join the Board of Assessors. We recently had a member resign, so we're down to 3 people. And that's a 5-person board. So if you know anyone that's interested in serving, we'd love to get at least 2 other people on the board, so that in the event, because right now it's very challenging to meet quorum. And then the final thing is we are discussing taking about $150,000 out of overlay to supplement the senior means housing, because right now, unless the state legislature acts on that, that will not be a program that we can institute. And the we feel that it would be great to be able to continue that program while it's in the interim basis. So we are in discussions of releasing $150,000 to cover the needs of the participants who've been in the program for the past 3 years. And we are going to probably wait right up till town meeting before making that decision to see if the state will act on the legislation. So thank you.
Good. And Tom, I'm sure your committee's already talked about this, but the RAPA legislation, federal legislation, may give some relief to the commercial properties. We'll just have to wait and see how that comes down.
Right, exactly. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you. Carlin.
Hi, Carlin Reed for the PEG Access Advisory Committee. About 4 things. At the April 1st meeting, we reviewed the town's proposed enterprise budget for the PEG Access Fund, and we found it very acceptable. So we recommended to the select board that Article 25, which is the PEG budget, that they approve Article 25 or that they support it. At the upcoming May 6th meeting, we're going to be awarding the first ever PEG Access Public Publishing Awards. I'm sorry, PEG Access Program Awards, recognizing the top 10 videos for the 2020-2021 season. I also want to give a shout out to the very excellent Patriots Day Festival, the 5 or 6 videos that are posted now, and suggest that you watch them because they really are pretty neat. Third thing I've been asked to announce that there will be an open meeting law video and program sponsored by the League of Women Voters on May 7 at 9:30. All the chairs are invited to it. This will be a public meeting. We'll have representatives from the Attorney General's office talk to us about the pitfalls of the open meeting law. That's May 7th at 9:30 for the League. And the last thing is a request from the committee to please, committee chairs, please post your videos as soon as possible because some of them relate to town meeting. For example, there's one from the Personnel Board of May 23rd that I've been trying to track down. That's not yet posted. So when you do get videos posted, please get them posted. And you've got various ways of doing that. Okay, that's it for me.
Thanks, Carlin. And I'll just piggyback on your comment about the recordings. We mentioned this at the select board as well. And there are some people who are recording on their own accounts, some using the town accounts. We need you to go back and even past ones for this year. If you, for some reason, did not get those submitted, they need to go in. We continue to get requests for certain meetings, and it takes a lot of extra time for us to track those down through the town manager's office. So we need your cooperation on that. Thank you. And if you're not the chair, please bring that message back to your chairs. Okay, Melissa, good morning.
Good morning, thank you. Hi, I represent the Historical Commission. As I've mentioned in the past, we have a bylaw amendment that we're proposing as a warrant article. In essence, we are trying to better align our bylaw with the standards that are set forth by the Secretary of the Interior. There are 3 principal areas. One, what constitutes historically significant. We want to change the date on which a property becomes subject to the law. That would be to a rolling 50 years or older, and to change the time frame at which a demolition delay begins. That would be to change it to the date of the determination, which is actually the public hearing. The other thing, we are trying to revise our oral history program, working with the town of the Concord Free Public Library. In particular, I've been reaching out, and I know she's here, Dr. Green, to members of the Emerson Hospital, because we felt it was very important to document the stories of the hospital throughout the pandemic. So we'll be working on that with Anka Voss, who is the curator of special collections. We continue to review applications for demolition, and recently, I would like to reiterate what Giannis talked about, this new open space task force for West Concord, the Junction Village area. We are interested in learning more about the history. I know that there's going to be some signage associated with Bruce Freeman Rail Trail that documents the history of that area, particularly during the Civil War, which I think Rick Fries is rather expert about. Basically, that's it.
Good, thank you very much. Your committee's busy as always. Deb, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. I will just give a brief COVID update. I'm happy to say that the town has taken an initiative in a lot of areas and really worked well with other towns and within our own town. For example, the Concord Housing Authority partnered with the West Concord Pharmacy to vaccinate residents of their property. So it's great that we could get pharmacists from West Concord Pharmacy to do that. The Council on Aging clinics have finished vaccinating. We've got about 260 senior citizens that we're vaccinating, including 20 homebound residents. So that last clinic was March 30th. Massachusetts is starting a program to vaccinate homebound seniors. As you may know, this was a concern that we've had from the very beginning when vaccine came out. We have people ready and willing to go vaccinate homebound seniors. If anyone here knows of a homebound senior that is not vaccinated, could you please forward their information to Susan Rask, the Public Health Director for the town of Concord. Again, that's Susan Rask. We need to know the names of homebound seniors who haven't been vaccinated in the town. So please spread the word. I'm also pleased to report that we are trying very hard to set up a regional clinic. As you know, Concord was not, where Massachusetts is not giving vaccine to towns, individual towns, but has suggested that if towns could regionalize, that they would consider sending large doses of vaccines. So we have sent a proposal to Mass DPH for a regional vaccine clinic to be held at the old Kmart site in Acton, a big facility. And we are collaborating with Acton, Bedford, Concord, Carlisle, Lincoln, Maynard, Wayland, and Westford. So this would be a huge effort from multiple towns. We're willing to do it and we have the space. We're just waiting to hear back from DPH. I will say there's only 4 current cases of COVID for the town of Concord, but we have heard of a handful of cases in Concord and surrounding towns of people who have tested positive for COVID who have had full vaccination. So the vaccine is not 100%, but it does seem to prevent hospitalization and more severe illness and death. So that's the message. Our public health nurse, Tricia McGeen, is again continuing to work very hard. She notes an uptick in cases in the age group of 7 to 14-year-olds. But we really do not think these positive cases are due to in-school contact. They're most likely from out-of-school activities and probably sports and things like that that kids are doing. But Tricia is closely following those as well. I think that's it for the moment. Hope you all are healthy and well.
Thank you. Carol Ann. Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute. Oh.
I'm Carol Ann Hannon, Chair of the Council on Aging Board. COA is working with Open Table on 2 programs. One is a monthly delivery of food, and the other is Healthy Helpings, which gives heart-healthy prepared foods to families. COA is looking forward to working with Gaining Grounds on a Food for Families program, which is not restricted to seniors. And they can sign up to receive grocery bags of fresh produce from Gaining Ground. Let's see. They've done 3 vaccination clinics. They've been completed. The call volume has definitely gone down on people looking for vaccinations, so that was good. They were overwhelmed for a while. And COA is still available to help people find vaccines. So if you know of anyone who needs help, you can contact the COA. And that's it.
Thank you, Carol Ann. Okay, Rick, good morning.
Morning, Rick Eifler, Concord Housing Authority. We have a new executive director that We are just waiting for DHCD, the state, to approve the contract. And we are hoping that they will approve the contract in time to have a new executive director when our old executive director retires on May 1st. But I'm not sure if that's a hard date. We may be able to get a little bit of overlap there. And we are happy to announce that we have received home fund awards in excess of $100,000 towards our 367 Commonwealth Avenue house that we're building at the tip of the Giroux Park property on Commonwealth Avenue, right next to the rail trail. So that will help a lot to make sure that we don't have cost overruns on that project. Construction costs have gone up considerably in the last year, especially materials costs for construction. So this will go a long way towards ensuring that we have enough money to build that house. They're working on the final sewer engineering, and so we should be probably within a month of having plans that can be submitted to the town for site plan reviews and that sort of thing. Hoping to get that approvals in place this summer, and then hoping to start construction later this year if we can coordinate with the construction that's going to happen for the access road to the park. We are making our final application to HUD to transfer 18 public housing units to local control, and that will be a big bonus for us in terms of the ability to fund repairs on those projects. HUD does not have a lot of money to dole out for repairs, and they prefer to have these repositionings take place. So we're in the final stages of that as well. So most of what will be happening over the next month, probably 2 months, will be transitioning a new executive director into all of these things. That's it.
Thank you very much. Pretty busy over there, it sounds like. Court? Good morning.
Yes, good morning, all. Thank you. As you know, the schools are on holiday this week. The kids and teachers are off for the week, and the K-8 schools have been in full operation. I think we have something less than 10%, single digits, who are continuing with remote learning this year, and everybody else is back. Sarah will be reporting on the high school shortly, of course. Our testing programs in the schools may reach 70%. That's our goal, minimal goal, and we think we might reach it. It was a struggle a month ago, but it's looking better now. Since we all met a month ago, Tracy Morano was elected to the school committee, so we congratulate her for her willingness to serve. And we continue our work with the various bargaining units. It's an unusual year for us, with a number of units being considered for new contracts. And we're trying to think about staggering them so they don't all pile up in single years. But we'll see how that goes with those units. And summer school, we do expect a more robust summer school to try to deal with some of the deficits that certain students may have encountered this year. We're still doing that analysis. So expect a larger summer school this year, and that will be held at the Willard School. Typically it's at the Alcott, but we're moving over to the Willard for 1 year. And then perhaps most significant for recent activity is one that I'll ask my colleague Sarah to take on, and that is that we, as a school committee, moved on a budget item to bring in a director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. That is still a work in progress, but we do have an appointment that was announced by the superintendent this week, and I'll leave the rest to Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, so we're very excited that Andrew Namichi who is currently the director, the METCO director for the districts, has agreed and is going to take on the job of Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. We're very happy to have been able to fill this position within our own system already, as he's got all of the connections, the relationships, and understands exactly, I think, what the community needs from this position. And he definitely has all of the skills and resources to fill it appropriately. So that's very exciting for all of us. And yes, the high school is returning to full in person on Monday, the 26th. And everybody, I think, is looking forward, a little apprehensive, but looking forward to being all together again. And I think that's it in the high school.
Okay, well, good luck with the reentry for the high school students. Okay, Jean.
Good morning. Thank you, Linda. The Commission on Disabilities met last week, and we discussed a little bit needs of people with cognitive disabilities to be able to understand material that's developed for and presented at town meeting. We'll be continuing that discussion at our next meeting, which will be the second Thursday of May 13th. We also talked more about concerns about people getting vaccine, and the new homebound vaccine distribution is really a big help for a number of people. So we'll definitely poll our membership and their contacts and get in touch with Susan Rask about that. We were hoping to have an update on the White Pond plans, but I think Kate was on vacation, so that will be on our next meeting agenda. And we talked for a while about the process that we're developing to provide some small grants, small grants to organizations that are trying to do some adaptations to make things more accessible. We had a request from the group that put on the play at the high school, weekend before last, for some funding for their interpreter services that they used. So we've got a draft of a policy and an application, and we're working on firming that up so that groups can apply if they need a little bit of funding to make things more accessible for people here in Concord. The money that we get that we would be able to distribute, again, it's not a lot. It comes from, it's a portion, I think 50% of the fines for cars that are parked in handicap parking spots. So that money gets evenly divided between the town and the commission. And then we talked a while about the legislation that's being presented to the legislature this session about capturing the history of state institutions, and that grew out of the consternation and some protests about the town of Waltham having a Christmas holiday light display last December on the grounds of the Fernald State School, where many people had lived, and it was a site where there was a lot of physical abuse. It's a site where there are graves. And so it didn't seem really proper to be having a holiday light display there. And I think it just was, the town wasn't really thinking much about that aspect of it. So there is a piece of legislation being introduced to capture the history of state institutions across the Commonwealth. And that was our meeting.
Sounds like an interesting one.
It was, it was.
Thank you.
Can I just add one more thing about the DEI position?
Sure.
Sure.
So we had a really robust community meeting a couple of weeks ago, asking people to give input on what they were hoping for the position. And we are going to be following up with a Meet the Director of Equity and Inclusion forum. The exact details are in the works of time and date. But I just wanted to put that on everybody's radar, and that Andrew will take over the position starting July 1st. So still a lot to work out in this, but a lot of good momentum.
All right, good, thank you. Jennifer, good morning.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Jennifer Shemin from the Economic Vitality Committee. Nice to see you all again. A couple of updates for you. First of all, the Economic Vitality Committee over the past year and a month now has really pivoted to respond predominantly to the COVID-19 crisis. Now that, thankfully, knock on wood, we are starting to come out of that a little bit as vaccines are getting on board and things are getting a little safer to open back up. The EVC has shifted, so we're now doing a 50-50 response. About half of our time is still focusing on helping the businesses in town and the tourism effort in town respond to the COVID crisis. And then the other half of our time, we're now shifting and looking a little bit longer term, tackling some of the issues around optimizing the connection between the tourism that comes through town and the economic vitality of our shopping centers. So we will start to be seeing a little bit more different activity in the future. I did want to take a minute and really thank those of you who helped to put together the warrant article to ease the restrictions around outdoor dining. I hope that will go forward. It's been a real wonderful silver lining that we've discovered during COVID is the ability to be outside and enjoy outdoor dining. I think has been a great opportunity for people to enjoy. So I hope we'll be able to continue that. We certainly can continue it through this season, but the town warrant article will help to ease those restrictions moving forward. There's great news that's come in recently. The town was awarded a MOT grant through Travel and Tourism, which is really going to help us to create a more robust tourism messaging, energy, marketing together, collaborating with Lexington. So that's really more in the town's purview, but the Economic Vitality Committee will certainly be supporting that effort. And going back to that kind of mid to longer term range goals, we're going to be working with the town. There was also some grant money awarded to the town through the CARES Act too, which will focus on helping to support businesses who've been impacted by COVID. And we'll be working closely with them to sort of think through not just knee-jerk response right now, but how can we make smart investments now that will help to grow some vitality in the future. And kind of hand in hand with that, we're also tackling a very big picture project to look at barriers to successful integration of businesses that can benefit the town, both in terms of current businesses that are here already, helping to make sure that there aren't unnecessary barriers to helping them succeed. And then longer term, you know, there are some real barriers in place that make it difficult for prospective new commercial tenants in town who could really be of service to the town, those adorable mom and pop shops or cute little restaurants that are so much more charming than the big franchises. So we've got a very dedicated project starting up with the Economic Vitality Committee to identify what those barriers are, to look at appropriate ways to ease them or address them. And some of that can be as simple as someone trying to start a business in Concord. It's very hard to even know sort of one-stop shop. What are all the various applications and permits that I need? It can go much deeper than that as well. So I would encourage anyone who's interested in that topic to attend our meetings. Economic Vitality Committee continues to meet twice a month until the COVID situation really is much better. Then we'll go back to monthly. I will, of course, update you here, but would warmly welcome any of you to attend our meetings, which happen every other Tuesday at 4 o'clock. Thanks.
Thank you, Jennifer. Kristen, good morning.
Good morning. I'm representing the planning board and things have been relatively quiet. We're preparing the warrant articles. But one thing kind of related to what Jennifer was just mentioning is we did get a presentation from MAPC, the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. They've been working on a grant for us for about 2 years to develop some zoning about the Thoreau Business District and kind of some mixed use options there and what we could change in the bylaws to encourage mixed use development and more pedestrian friendly. So we'll be holding a public forum, time to be announced and date to be announced in June. And that is in preparation for hopefully a special town meeting in the fall. And so we'd really love to hear, I mean, I don't feel like we've heard from businesses as much as we should. I know that our town planning department has continued to reach out to, property owners. This is along Thoreau Street and by Crosby's and with those areas. But I want to make sure that when we, propose these great new kind of well-researched and vetted bylaws, that it really does entice our current property owners to develop and make this area, really revitalize this area. So that's about the main big thing that's going on in the planning board.
Kristen, can I just ask when that information becomes available? I'd also love to relay it to the Concord Together volunteer group. It's not a real entity, it's a group of volunteers, but there are about 35 business owners who've really developed a very nice cross-sectional cooperation. And I'm sure that group would really love to hear about that public forum. So
okay, that's great. Let me be in touch with you also to just show you kind of where we are right now, which was, we kind of have like a vision, a draft vision that I think is worth looking at right now. Thank you.
So Kristen, I assume that public forum is likely to be after town meeting?
Right.
Yeah, okay. So someone has a question.
It's Carly. Kristen, the special town meeting that you're thinking about for the Thoreau planning, would that be at the same time as the proposed middle school building committee special town meeting? Or will it be
I would imagine it would have to just be one town meeting that we do whatever we need on. And Linda, you can probably address that better than I can.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're talking about a likely town meeting in the fall. I mean, that's the context. And whatever business is before us that we think needs to be acted on prior to the annual town meeting would likely be on the agenda.
Right, we haven't really, because we haven't gotten past the public forum, we haven't really proposed to the select board what we might do for a town meeting.
All right, Eliza, good morning.
All right, here we go. Hi, all. I'm Eliza Bemis. This is a report from the Ag Committee. Just really quick, planting has started on Concord Farms. Seedling sales are starting at businesses around town, which is great. The Ag Committee did approve a statement coming out against Article 49 moving forward, which is the neonic pesticides on new town ag leases. I think that got sent to the select board, but the short version is that the state had changed how that pesticide category is being regulated, and so we felt this was not necessary, and that the state was probably a better regulator of this than the town. Other updates, the spring film project with the Minuteman Media Network is ongoing. They've started filming at some farms around town. And the other big thing is Concord Ag Day is tentatively being scheduled for Saturday, September 11th, but that will of course depend on what the COVID situation is at that point. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Okay, Pat, good morning.
Good morning, Linda. Thank you. I'm Pat Nelson. I'm co-chair of the Middle School Building Committee. And our last meeting was a very long and deliberative meeting, at which time we reviewed the construction delivery methods. Once again, this was I believe our second or maybe our third review of those construction delivery methods, and determined that we would go with a design bid build construction delivery method. And we also reviewed reviewed the interest that we've received from the community to enlarge the gym and enlarge the auditorium and the middle school building project. Our task for that meeting was to try to determine what our budget would be for the project, which would then determine the scope. And we reviewed the 2019 town meeting projections of what the project might cost ultimately, especially given the time that has passed, the 2 years that have passed since 2019. And we determined that we would set a budget that would not exceed 108 million. And that within that budget, we would look again at the size of the gym and the size of the auditorium. Our design folks have been asked to take a look at this again to see what we could do within that 108 million. And I want to be really clear, we're not suggesting that we will go absolutely up to 108 million, but we wanted to give ourselves the space to go back and review those community uses of middle school as we've been charged to do. So that was the bulk of our last meeting.
Okay. And Pat, I don't know if you were online at the point when Mary mentioned that this will be discussed at the FinCom meeting this Thursday.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Elise, good morning.
Good morning. I'm representing the Capital Planning Task Force, and we have been debating diligently the pros and cons of a standing committee versus describing what we are calling an enhanced process for long-term capital planning. Now, this task force is only interested and concerned with tier 3 projects. So these are very large projects, any project exceeding $5 million or any project that has 2 or more phases totaling $5 million. So they're not the tier 1 and tier 2 capital planning projects that would occur in the current capital planning 5-year budget. So we voted at our meeting last week to recommend an enhanced process and we do not recommend a standing committee be established. And we're developing the specific protocol for this enhanced process to be certain that there is robust public input throughout the process, and that there is a codification of the process so that it will happen every year. So that is that's our main interest. So the process has, in addition to a time frame for public meetings, joint meetings between the select board and the school committee and input from the finance committee, it has, we developed a template that will allow all future projects that can be imagined to be teed up on this template so that the debt service, the future debt service can be estimated, and that the template will allow a different sequencing of projects so that you can actually test which project might be affordable to go first. There are a set of criteria that we're recommending to be certain that all projects, that we have a systems approach to all large projects, that they will take into account protection from climate impacts, as well as the vulnerability of our capital assets. And so that was part of the charge, and that set of criteria has been developed. Let's see. So the abstract of the tier 3 long-range capital plan, which will be a 10-year horizon, Some of us think it should be a 20-year horizon, but we'll start with 10. And so it would seek to identify all future projects with an estimated cost, a description of the need that the project would be fulfilling, a site if a site has been developed, or a flag if a site needs to be acquired, and a potential year for the horizon. So I think we'll be, the final thing is that we're recommending that the vetting of these projects and the collection of public input on these projects happen over several months, but then that the annual presentation of this capital plan will be in sync with the town manager's capital plan presentations and the warrant. We think that that is the best way to capture the public's input when people are already teed up and interested in what is coming for town meeting. Thank you.
So Elise, if I may ask, has your committee decided when they might be ready to bring their report to the select board?
We haven't talked about a date, Linda, but my guess is it would be in the second half of June. I know we have a deadline of June 30th. We're hoping not to use our entire runway, but I think probably a June 15th target would be in the middle of June would be most likely.
All right, thank you. All right, let's see. Eric, good morning.
Good morning, Linda. Eric Van Loon for the Tax Relief Committee, and humbling to follow the report of our honored citizen. The Tax Relief Committee fund is currently subsidizing Concord local real estate taxes for about 51 families. We have successfully completed our annual appeal. It's funded completely by voluntary donations from citizens. We have something of a comfortable safety net to enable us to assure that we can continue the process. And we do have a vacancy coming up. So if anyone knows of anyone that would be interested in serving, please have them get in touch with me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Elizabeth, good morning.
Good morning. Reporting for the zoning board, things have been pretty much business as usual. A couple of big things we're still working on: the Concord Country Club and the construction of an irrigation pond there that proceeded without authorization. So we're working through that. We are also now working on a subdivision earth removal permit for subdivision at 1442 Main Street. It's about 60,000 cubic yards of earth removal, and we are have just contracted for outside engineers to be brought in to advise on that. So that should be moving forward, probably not for another couple months. That we'll have that information and be talking about that again. And that's basically it for us.
Okay, thank you. You were one of the committees I referenced earlier in the meeting that's had some very robust community discussions, and we appreciate the professionalism and the patience with which you are working through those conversations. So thank you.
I appreciate that. There have been some long nights and lots of discussion. Yes.
Yes, there have been. Yeah, thanks. Okay, Peter, good morning.
Good morning. Grateful that the spotlight is on Elizabeth and not us for the moment.
It'll change, don't worry.
Very quickly, we've got 8 or 10 projects under review. It's construction season, so we're busy, mostly residential, some large, but other than that, we're kind of steady as she goes. So all is well.
Glad to hear it, Peter. Well, keep those robust conversations down to a gentle roar. Okay, let's see. I think I'll go to Nat next. Yeah.
Great, thank you. A couple of things. One is we have a special meeting this week. Our meetings have been somewhat hot recently with regard to the last half mile at White's Pond. There is a set of issues around fencing based upon discussions and agreements that were made back in 2016 that with changes to MassDOT's oversight They may or may not approve those. So we're having a special meeting this Thursday to try and resolve those. But it's, as you can imagine, pretty intense. I want to thank Marcia for her work and in supporting us on that. And we'll let you know what happens with that. Just a reminder to everybody that this weekend and I think in the second weekend, the parts of Route 2 will be closed as they put a culvert under the highway for the animals to use. We're also having trail counts in coordination with the Central Transportation Planning Services Group of the MPO. They will happen on 5/18 to 5/20 at 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. And then the 22nd and 23rd, which is a weekend between 12 and 1. We're asking for volunteers. If anyone's interested, please go to the site. You can find that. We have two letters before the board. One is for a public art project in the tunnel under Powder Mill Road. So hopefully the select board, if you haven't already, will have a chance to look through that. And then finally, at another meeting, I'd like to discuss more about the term limits, the co-termination of chairs or of seats on committees, because we have a year where 5 people are going to be thrown off the committee, even though we staggered their coming in. But I'd love to discuss more about how we might change that, because it is very hard to find people, as you all know, to sit on committees. So it might be easier if we could stagger when people drop off. So that's it. Thank you very much.
A lot going on with your committee. Nat, can I just ask, the meeting you referenced on Thursday, is that with MassDOT to?
No, this will be a MassDOT appeared at our last meeting. The project manager, he did an extremely good job. It's just trying to understand what expectations were set 5 years ago when the committee dealt with what to do about the path along White's Pond, and the fact that the last half mile was dropped from the project, and that's between Powder Mill Road and Sudbury, the Sudbury line. When it was dropped, the 75% plan was not reviewed. So all of the discussions around the fencing, which is the big issue, were never reviewed by the appropriate people at MassDOT. So residents, I think, have felt that, oh, well, this is what we agreed to, and there's been some changes. So we're trying to deal with both understanding where people are now, what MassDOT will approve, what the residents want. And as you know, White Pond is a important resource, and there has been a lot of challenges in terms of how do you manage access or keep people from just going down there, willy-nilly. So I think Marcia's done a great job. We'll see what happens on Thursday. And we need to get a 75% plan to MassDOT. Just a heads up that we may request things that MassDOT might not approve in terms of fencing, in which case the residents may come back to the town and say, hey, can we get some help here? But we're going to try and manage it so that doesn't happen. But again, we're an advisory committee and we'll do what we can.
All right. Thank you very much for that detail. Carmen, did you want to speak?
Thank you, Linda. I just want to remind everyone that the hearing process for town meeting will begin next Tuesday. And the hearings are particularly important this year because, like last year, in order to streamline our town meeting process in June, we will not have formal presentations at town meeting on the articles, and these hearings will be the opportunity for people to hear an in-depth presentation on articles that are sponsored this year. All these hearings will be recorded, so it will be not only people who tune in during the hearing to see these hearings and hear the questions, see PowerPoint presentations, etc., but they'll all be posted on the website so that as we get closer to town meeting, people will be able to access these recorded hearings on any article that's of interest to them. So it's particularly important that everybody be really well prepared with their presentations at the hearings, with their responses to expected questions, because this will be a real front line for folks for town meeting. And I'll remind you of the format we used last year for town meeting. We had a book of town meeting materials, and each article that was before the meeting had a narrative explanation, and the motion for the article was there, and the accompanying, and then there were various committee statements, for and against articles, that were also included in the town meeting materials. And the companion piece is the Finance Committee report, which will include all of the articles as well as all of the recommendations by the Select Board and the Finance Committee on the articles. So we'll have a pretty full documentary presentation for folks. It's not the same as having an audio-visual presentation, and we simply can't do the audio-visual presentation outside. We won't have a screen, and we also don't really have the time if we're going to get through the whole meeting in a single afternoon. So thank you for listening to that long-winded reminder of how important these hearings are, both for those of you who will be presenting on articles and for those of you who will be citizens participating at town meeting. And do spread the word that people should pay particular attention to the hearings. And if they can't be there for the hearing itself, be sure to tune in at a later time and watch those hearings online. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carmen. Okay, anyone else who would like to make a comment? If not, for those of you who were not on at the very beginning of this meeting, I just want to remind everybody that, and if you are not the chair of your committee, to remind your staff person or the chair of your committee that the recordings of your meetings, even past ones for the year, that may not have been submitted are submitted to MNN, Minuteman Media. It's important that we have those meetings. We're spending a lot of time trying to track down individual meetings that have not been already submitted. So please get that word back to your respective committees. So thank you, everyone. Have a good week and see you next week at the public hearings. Bye.